Hello everyone, so in this video we're going to have a look at some excellent chess examples of stalemate and how we can use the stalemate idea not just as an accidental one, because stalemate doesn't always happen as an accident, but it can also be it can also happen in an organized manner, and we can use it as a resourceful defense when specifically when we are losing. So let's dive into it. I'm going to show you 5 excellent examples of it, and each time you're going to pause the video and try to find the move that should draw the game. So here is the first example. As you can see, white pawn has just captured the black pawn on b7 and is simply about to promote. So let me just take you through the position. All right, this white pawn is simply about to promote in one move. How do you stop the pawn? There is a black pawn on c7 which stops us from going on the back rank. You can't really go to b6. Rook b6, bishop is going to capture and then he'll promote. That will be anyway winning for white. So it seems like this is an absolutely lost position for black. How is black even supposed to make a stalemate here? A forced stalemate. And it is exactly in this kind of position where we have to use our creativity. You have to first of all find different ways of taking away some squares from your own king. And this is how it happens. So the first move is black plays the move rook to e6, and that is a rook sacrifice, a very brilliant one. And basically white has to capture it. If he doesn't capture, let me just show you what if he doesn't. If the king moves somewhere, then the rook can go on the back rank, and this time the rook stops the pawn promotion. If the pawn promotes, you're going to simply capture. White will be only left with a bishop. In that case, it will be a draw. So going back, after the move rook to e6, obviously he's going to capture the rook. That's a free rook. And it's still not clear what is black planning to do. How is he gonna stalemate here? This is the point. Now black is gonna play king to c6. The king hides himself on the c6 square, blocks his own pawn. At the same time, we are attacking the white pawn. So next move, we would very much like to capture the pawn, and that will be an instant draw. So what should he play? Well, the obvious move is the pawn going forward and promoting to a queen. But exactly now, this is the point where you realize the black pawn can't move forward. The king can't go here, here, here. This square is controlled by the bishop, and the entire b file is controlled by the queen. That is a stalemate. That was an absolutely brilliant defense by black. Now, the same happens if he promotes to a rook. So I'm going to promote to a rook. Same story again. The bishop controls the star squares. The king controls the squares. And the rook controls this one. So it's basically an absolute draw. Now, if he promotes to a bishop, we don't even have to calculate that. Both of them are dark square bishops, and there is no way that he can win because he at least needs one light square bishop. So that's not gonna help him. If he, of course, promotes to a knight, what happens then? Now we simply play king to b7. That is a double attack. We are threatening to capture the bishop. If he tries to defend it with knight to c6, the bishop is definitely defended, but we take the knight. He simply has a bishop. He might sacrifice the bishop for our pawn, but more or less it's gonna be a draw. It's nothing more than just a draw. That was excellent. In end game, I wanted to show you. It is one of this is our first example where we sacrifice the rook, and in order to create this excellent idea of stalemate after the queen promotes. What a wonderful idea! All right, let's go to example number 2. So here is a second example. As you can see, black has a lot of pawns, and our king is extremely badly placed. In fact, all it takes for black to win is simply play something like queen h6, queen h5, or queen h4 check. He throws a check on the h file, and after king g1, queen h2, it's simply a mate. So it seems that we are totally in a lost position. Can we save the game? Can we try to find some kind of a defense? So, like always, go ahead, pause it, and try to find one defensive move or the entire idea through which white can actually draw the game. All right, so here we go. Basically, what we have to do is, you can see we have to sacrifice our rook, our queen, and we have to block this pawn on c4, and we have to also take away the g1 square from the king, so the king cannot go on that. Now, this seems like you're asking for a lot of stuff. Getting rid of 3 pieces and controlling the entire diagonal is pretty much a lot to ask, and it really looks like an impossible draw. Yet there is a way in which we can create a stalemate position nearly by force. So here we go. The first move, rook to f8 check. Obviously the king has to move. King a7. and we sacrifice the rook. That's the point. The king cannot come out thanks to the queen controlling over this. King has to take, and it's time for the queen to leave the board. Queen f8 check, king a7. And now this is very important. We also have a pawn. We need to block that pawn. And the way to do it is queen c5. That's a check. That's basically a double attack. In fact, if the king goes back, you should not really capture the queen because of a back rank mate over here, but rather you should go for a perpetual like this. That is basically the point. But the moment he captures a queen, then stalemate instantly happens. Our pawn is blocked. This pawn is blocked. King can't step up. King can't really go to the g1 square thanks to the queen protecting this g1 square, taking it away from our king. That is basically a draw, either by perpetual check or by stalemate. What an excellent example. All right, so it's time I take you to example number 3, which is absolutely brilliant. And here we go with example number 3. This is a really beautiful one. White is totally lost here. He's down 3 pawns, and you can try to give some checks over here, but that's none of that is going to work. At one point, white will run out of checks, and that will be a really tough position for white to play. In fact, as you can see, black has 3 extra pawns, a totally winning position. All he has to do is exchange queens, and then it's a easy peasy win for black. But there is something that white can do and force checkmate. There is a very simple line that white can use, and not checkmate but stalemate, force stalemate. So pause the video, and I'll give you 5 seconds. Just pause the video and try to find the move that white should play in order to draw the game. All right, so there you have it. The first move is basically we have to get rid of our bishop, our queen, our pawn. At the same time, we need this queen to be on the f2 square, after which our king will not have any kind of mobility at all, or g3 as well. If the queen reaches g3 after sacrificing everything, it's still a draw. How does that happen? Well, it starts with the move bishop to f2. This is a forcing move. The queen is pinned. The queen can't really move away. Basically, he can either capture, after which we are going to simply win the game, in fact, after captures, or he can play what he played in the game, that is pawn to e3, defending and closing the diagonal. And here comes the point. We crash through, we capture the pawn, again pinning the queen. The queen has to capture. Here comes another point, queen f2. Now we get the queen exactly where we wanted. He captures us. His queen is exactly where we wanted it to be. And now you should not capture this pawn, but rather go for a forcing move. If you capture this pawn, he's gonna throw in a check. Let me just show you. He's gonna throw in a check. Your king escapes, and then he's gonna capture back. It is not a stalemate, and that is the reason in this position you have to be very careful and play the move a5 check. He has few options. He can go back, instant stalemate. He can capture the pawn, still an instant stalemate. So basically, this is the trick. We're gonna use it, and that's a beautiful stalemate. All right, example number 4. So let's go to example number 4. All right, there you go. That's example number 4. And as all of my subscribers are really brilliant at tactics and finding such kind of moves, I have absolutely no doubt that till now you've already found the solution. In fact, this is very similar to the last example. There is a little change. Just the pieces are shuffled around and the solution doesn't change at all. In fact, as you all already know, the move is going to be queen to f2. That is a brilliant swing of the queen. The queen comes to the f2 square. Basically, we force the black queen to capture. If he doesn't, then we're going to capture him and we're going to win the game. So he has to take, and there you have it, an instant stalemate. All right, one last example, and this one is a really prettiest one. My favorite example among all of this. Well, I kept the best for the last, and this one is really one of my favorite examples in all of the 5 ones. And it's pretty brilliant and beautiful as well. So as you can see, black's last move was pawn from a5 to a4, basically attacking the knight on b3. The knight is pinned, it cannot move. Now let me just take you through exactly what is happening on the board. So there you go. Basically, his rook controls the back rank, and he has a pretty strong threat of capturing with the pawn or with the queen, and that is actually completely winning, for black. So we are absolutely in a lost position, and yet there is a way in which we can draw the game. You can see we don't really have to deal with the knight. It's already pinned. These 2 pawns are already pinned. The can't really move. The king can't really move. This pawn can't really move. So basically, this one is actually pretty simple. We just have to deal with the pawn on h5 and the queen on f4, and that happens as you have already guessed with the move queen f6 check, king g8 only move, queen g7. That's a beautiful move to make on the board. So king takes g7 only move, h6 check. No matter where the king goes, king can go on several square, any square is fine. Basically it's a stalemate. This pawns can't move, this pawns can't move. Knight is pinned and the king has no moves. And we are very, very safe and happy because we were in a totally lost position. But because we used stalemate as a defensive idea, we were able to create this beautiful draw. So basically, the bottom line is no matter what kind of position you are, you always have to try to find some creative way of stalemating the game. It's always better to draw the game rather than lose a game, because half a point makes a lot of difference in a tournament. They will start tournaments will start at certain points, and you're gonna have to learn the defense in chess. I think that's really crucial part of chess, learning defense, because that's one of the weakest part. We do study end games for a certain amount of time, but how much time do we pay attention on the defense? Hardly anything. So I think that's the reason we have to be very good at defense, not just defense, but as Jacob Agard calls it, active defense, or what I'd like to call as resourceful defense. Being creative while defending. So hope you enjoyed this and found this video instructive. So until next time, and do share with me if you have stalemated your opponent. It's pretty quite a satisfying feeling when you are totally lost and you still manage to survive using a stalemate. It's quite a satisfying feeling. So until next time, I really enjoyed this example. Hope you do as well. So see you.